Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. Olivia and I have been married for 5 years. My name is Daniel, and to outsiders, we are the enviable golden couple of Manhattan's Upper East Side. I work as a creative director at an advertising agency, and Olivia is a senior editor at a fashion magazine. We lived in an apartment with a great view overlooking Central Park. Every morning, we would sip hand-brewed coffee on our balcony and watch the city wake up. However, life always hides a few cracks, even beneath the brightest surface. That morning was no different than usual. I was in the kitchen preparing our healthy breakfast: whole wheat toast, avocado, and poached eggs. Olivia was sitting at her dresser, carefully applying her YSL lipstick. "Honey," I said as I set the plates, "don't forget our dinner with Jake and the others tonight." Olivia responded absently, "Oh, yeah, I remember. I might be a little late though. The magazine has a deadline today." I frowned. This was the third time this month. I walked over to her with my breakfast and kissed her cheek gently. Her perfume didn't seem to smell the same as usual. "That's okay. I can pick you up later," I offered. Olivia, however, shook her head. "Don't bother. I'll just take a cab." I nodded, trying to suppress the twinge of unease in my mind. Maybe I really was overthinking this. After breakfast, we each left for work. I drove to my ad agency in Midtown, and Olivia took the subway to her magazine on Fifth Avenue. Walking into the office, my assistant Sarah is already waiting for me. She hands me a cup of coffee and begins to report on the day's schedule. "Mr. Daniel, there's an important client meeting at 10 o'clock. Is your proposal ready?" I smiled confidently. "Of course, we'll be able to take this big client this time." Sarah hesitated, wanting to speak. I raised an eyebrow. "What's wrong? What's the problem?" It's nothing major. It's just that Ms. Olivia seemed to have left your wedding ring in the pantry when she brought you lunch the day before yesterday. I keep forgetting to return it to you." I froze. Olivia delivering lunch? Why didn't I remember that? "Oh, thank you, Sarah," I said as I took the familiar gold ring, but a pang of doubt washed over me. Olivia had been forgetting to wear her wedding ring a lot lately, saying she was afraid of getting it dirty or losing it. But when did she come to the office? I shook my head and put those thoughts to the back of my mind for now. What mattered now was the upcoming client meeting. The meeting went well. Our idea was appreciated by the client, and the multimillion-dollar project would likely fall into our company's lap. After the meeting adjourned, my partner and longtime friend Jake patted me on the shoulder. "Daniel, my brother, you were fantastic today. With a performance like that, the client will definitely pick us." I smiled and said, "That's natural. By the way, dinner tonight still counts, right?" Jake's expression stiffened for a moment, but quickly returned to his usual self. "Of course, Kate and I have made reservations at the restaurant. Le Bernardine, the one you guys like." "Great, but Olivia might be a little late. You know, magazine work." Jake nodded. "No problem. We can have a drink first." After work, I drove straight to the restaurant. Le Bernardine is one of the best seafood restaurants in New York and Olivia's favorite place. It's where we had our first date. As I sat at the bar waiting, I unconsciously touched my wedding ring in my pocket. Something was wrong, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Olivia always seemed distracted lately, and we were communicating less and less. "Maybe it's just the stress of work," I consoled myself. Jake and Kate arrived. We exchanged pleasantries and ordered some aperitifs. Olivia arrived almost an hour late. "Sorry, guys," she panted. "Work was just too busy." I noticed that her makeup was subtle and obviously reapplied. The perfume she smelled, if anything, didn't seem to be the same one from this morning either. Dinner went on in a pleasant atmosphere as we chatted about work, movies we'd recently seen, and planned vacations. On the surface, it was business as usual, but I always felt that something was strange. Maybe it was just me. Jake seemed to be looking at Olivia in a different way. Olivia, on the other hand, seemed particularly active, letting out a silvery laughter from time to time. We were both a little silent on the way home. I tried to break that silence. "Did you have fun tonight?" Olivia looks out the window at the passing street and whispers, "Well, it's nice." I took a deep breath and worked up the courage to ask, Olivia, is there something wrong between us? She turned her head with a puzzled look on her face. What's the problem? We're fine. I opened my mouth, but I didn't know what to say. Maybe I really was overthinking it. That night, I tossed and turned, having trouble sleeping, Olivia asleep beside me, and I stared at the ceiling, my mind replaying the details of recent events. Maybe tomorrow I should have a talk with Olivia, I told myself. But what I didn't know was that life was about to hit me hard and my world was about to be turned upside down. After that dinner, the distance between Olivia and I seemed to grow. I tried to convince myself that it was just because I was busy at work, but the uneasiness inside me grew stronger. The other night, I worked late. When I walked out of the office, the streets of New York had quieted down. I decided to surprise Olivia by going straight to the magazine to pick her up from work. However, when I arrived, the receptionist told me Olivia had left long ago. Mrs. Olivia? She didn't even show up for work today, the receptionist said with a puzzled look on her face. I froze, not knowing how to react. Olivia had clearly said she had to work late in the morning. I pulled out my cell phone and dialed her number. Hi, honey. Olivia's voice came from the other end of the line, a cacophony of background sounds. Where are you? I came to pick you up at the magazine, but they said you didn't show up today. There was silence on the other end of the line for a split second. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I want to see an important client today and just finished talking. I'll be home soon. I took a deep breath and tried to calm my mind. Okay, I'll wait for you at home then. Hanging up the phone, I stood in the street, feeling a sense of bewilderment. Olivia's behavior lately was becoming more and more unsettling to me. I decided to go sit at a nearby bar to clear my head. At the bar, I ran into my sister, Emma, who was there celebrating the end of her exams with a few of her medical school classmates. Seeing me, Emma immediately realized something was wrong. Daniel, what happened? She asked with concern. I shook my head, not knowing where to begin. Emma gestured for her friends to go ahead and sat down next to me. Is it something to do with Olivia? She asked cautiously. I smiled bitterly and began to pour out my recent concerns to Emma, who listened quietly, nodding from time to time. Daniel, have you thought about? Emma wanted to say something. Thought about what? Maybe Olivia. Emma took a deep breath. Maybe she's lying to you. I snapped my head up to look at Emma, a stabbing pain in my heart. Even though I had that suspicion myself, hearing it from someone else still sent a wave of heartache through me. I don't know, Emma. I really don't know what to do. Emma held my hand. Brother, I'll support you no matter what happens. But you need to talk to Olivia. I nodded and looked at Emma gratefully. At least I had someone I could trust in this messed up world. The next day, I decided to come home early, hoping to have a good talk with Olivia. However, when I pushed open the door to my house, I found it dark. Olivia? I called out, and there was no response. I turned on the light and found a note on the coffee table. There's an important impromptu meeting, so I won't be back tonight. Don't wait for me. Oh. I stared at the note and felt a wave of powerlessness. This was the fourth time this month. I picked up my cell phone and hesitated before dialing Jake's number. Hey, man. Jake's voice sounded a little nervous. Jake, are you busy right now? I'd like to talk to someone. There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. I'm in a meeting right now. I'll catch you tomorrow at lunchtime? I was a little disappointed, but agreed. After hanging up the phone, I sat on the couch and stared at the note. Suddenly, a thought flashed through my mind. I grabbed Olivia's laptop and typed in our wedding anniversary as the password. The screen lit up. My hands trembled a little, wondering if I was doing the right or wrong thing. But my inner doubts drove me to keep checking. I opened her email and skimmed through the recent emails. Most of them were work-related, nothing special. Just as I was about to give up, an encrypted folder caught my eye. I tried a few passwords, but couldn't open it. Finally, I typed in the name of Olivia's favorite movie. The folder is open. Inside were some photos and videos. When I clicked on the first photo, I felt the world fall apart. That's an intimate picture of Olivia and Jake together. My mind went blank, not knowing how to react. I mechanically looked through the other photos and videos, each one like a sharp knife. stabbing me hard in the heart. I don't know how long it took me to come back to my senses. I shut down my computer and sat in the darkness. Outside the window, the night scene of New York was still sparkling, but in my eyes, everything had lost its color. I picked up my cell phone and hesitated for a long time before finally dialing Emma's number. Emma, my voice caught a little in my throat. You're right, Olivia. She betrayed me. A soft sigh came from the other end of the line. Daniel, I'm so sorry. Where are you right now? I'll be right over. Hanging up the phone, I stood in front of the window and looked at the bustling crowd downstairs. I used to think that my love for Olivia and I would be as impenetrable as the skyscrapers of New York, but now, everything seems like a flower in a mirror and a moon in the water. I don't know what to do next, but one thing I know for sure, my life will never be the same again. It was 2 in the morning when Emma came to my house. I was sitting on the living room floor with pictures of Olivia and I scattered around me. Without saying a word, Emma sat down next to me and gave me a long hug. Do you want to talk? She asked softly. I shook my head, nodded again, and finally smiled bitterly. Where do I begin? I told Emma everything I had found out. Every word that came out felt like it was tearing my heart out. Emma listened quietly, holding my hand tightly from time to time. I should have listened to your warning sooner, I said, laughing to myself. Emma shook her head. Daniel, it's not your fault. You just believe in love too much. I stood up and walked to the window. New York was still lit up at night, as if mocking my naivety. What shall I do, Emma? Shall I confront her? Emma thought for a moment. I think you should calm down, organize your evidence, and then confront her. But most importantly, you need to figure out what you want. I nodded and looked at Emma gratefully. Thank you, sister. I don't know what I would have done without you. Emma stayed with me. That night, we sat shoulder to shoulder on the couch like we did when we were kids, watching the city slowly awaken outside the window. The next morning, Olivia returned. She looked tired but content, with a hint of the smile I used to love so much on her face. She visibly froze when she saw that Emma was home. Emma, what are you doing here? I stand up and look Olivia straight in the eye. We need to talk? Olivia's smile froze on her face as her eyes darted between me and Emma. Did something happen? I took a deep breath and pulled out the printed photos. You can explain these. Olivia's face instantly turned pale the moment she saw the photo. She opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. Daniel, I can explain. I interrupted her. Explain what? Explain how you betrayed me. Explain how you slept with my best friend. Emma quietly left the room, leaving us alone. Olivia's tears started to fall. Daniel, I'm really sorry. I didn't know things would turn out like this. Turned out like this? I sneered. You think this was just an accident? These pictures, these videos, it's obviously more than just an accident. Olivia dropped onto the couch and began to sob. There was a time when seeing her cry would have broken my heart. But now, all I feel is a pang of numbness. Why? I asked softly. Is our marriage so worthless to you? Olivia looked up with mixed emotions in her eyes. No, Daniel. I love you, really. It's just that I think life is too mundane. Jake gives me a thrill, a freshness. I know it's selfish, but I can't help myself. I felt sick to my stomach. I thought our love was so pure, but in her eyes, it was just a blandness. It's not just Jake, is it? I pressed on. There are others. Olivia lowered her head, acquiescing to my suspicions. I felt a twinge of heaven and had to hold onto the wall to stay on my feet. Daniel, please forgive me. We can start over and I promise that in the future. I interrupted her. No, Olivia. There's no more later. I want a divorce. When she heard the word divorce, Olivia was struck by lightning. She fell to her knees and hugged my legs. No, Daniel, please don't leave me. I'll change. Really. Give me a chance, okay? I broke away from her embrace and took a few steps back. It's too late, Olivia. You've had too many chances. I turned towards the bedroom and started packing. Olivia followed me, apologizing and pleading. But in my ears, the words had lost their meaning. After packing up the essentials, I grabbed my car keys and prepared to leave. At the door, I take one last look at Olivia. I'll have a lawyer contact you. by Olivia. I stepped out of my apartment building as the New York sun stung my eyes. I stood on the street where people were coming and going and suddenly felt incredibly lonely. I took out my cell phone and hesitated, but dialed Jake's number. "Daniel," said Jake with a hint of unease in his voice. "Game over, Jake," I said calmly. "I know all about it." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Finally, Jake said softly, "Daniel, I'm so sorry." I hung up, not wanting to hear his explanation. What was once a best friend was now the biggest betrayer of all. I drove to Emma's apartment. Emma took me in without saying a word and organized a guest room for me. "Daniel," Emma handed me a cup of hot tea. "Are you okay?" I shook my head and nodded again. "I don't know, Emma. I feel like the whole world is falling apart. But at the same time, I feel a strange relief." Emma held my hand. "It's normal, Daniel. You need time to heal. Remember, I'm always on your side." I looked at Emma gratefully, suddenly realizing that in a world full of betrayal, I had someone who truly cared about me. That night, I lay in the guest room of Emma's apartment, listening to the hustle and bustle of New York City outside my window. After a week at Emma's, I finally got up the courage to go back to my apartment. Olivia had moved out, leaving only a note saying she would be staying at a friend's house. The apartment still held traces of our life together, every corner filled with memories. I stood in the center of the living room and felt a sense of suffocation. I began to mechanically pack and box up items that belonged to Olivia. Her dresses in the closet, her favorite book of poetry on the bookshelf, the mug she used in the kitchen. Each item was like a hammer blow to my heart. Halfway through packing, I found our wedding album. Ghostly, I turned it over. We were so happy in the photo. Our faces were filled with visions of the future. Who would have thought that after just a few years, everything would turn out like this? I leaned helplessly against the wall, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. I cried like a child, for lost love, for broken trust, for that naive self. I don't know how long it took, but the doorbell brought me back to reality. I wiped away my tears and opened the door to find it was my lawyer, Sarah. "Mr. Daniel, I brought the divorce papers," Sarah said, "and we need to discuss the division of property." I nodded and invited her in. We sat down at the table, and Sarah began to explain the various legal terms. But my thoughts drifted elsewhere. "Mr. Daniel?" Sarah's voice snapped me back to reality. "Are you okay?" I managed to squeeze out a smile. "Sorry, I was just kind of drifted off." "What were you saying?" Sarah looked at me sympathetically. "I know this is difficult for you, but we need to deal with these things as soon as possible. Olivia has made her request." Olivia asked for half of our joint property, including the condo. I laughed bitterly, remembering how excited we were when we bought the condo. Now, it was just another asset to be divided. "I don't care about the money," I said to Sarah. "I just want to get this over with." Sarah frowned. "Mr. Daniel, I understand how you feel, but we still have to protect your rights." I waved my hand. I know. You just follow the legal process. I'm just too tired." After Sarah left, I called the office and took a week off. I needed time to organize my thoughts and reprogram my life. For the next few days, I locked myself in my apartment and didn't answer anyone's phone calls. Except for Emma, I began to wonder what life would be like without Olivia. I tried to pick up my old hobby again. I played my guitar, which I hadn't touched in a long time. And although my technique was rusty, the familiar melody brought a touch of solace. I started running again, letting my physical exhaustion temporarily mask the pain in my soul. Emma calls every day to say hello and sometimes brings food over. I felt a twinge of warmth watching her go about her business. "You know," Emma said as she sat down next to me the other night, "I've always thought you were more real." I looked at her quizzically. "What do you mean?" Emma shrugged. "It's just, the old you was always so perfect, so unreal. Now you're scarred, but more like a real person." I pondered Emma's words and realized she was right. In the past, I'd played the role of the perfect husband, trying to keep up the facade of glamour. Now that facade was being ripped off, revealing the real, vulnerable me. "Maybe this is growing up," I whispered. Emma nodded and gave me a hug. "You'll be fine, Daniel. You're stronger than you think." That night, I made a decision. I couldn't hide in my apartment forever feeling sorry for myself. The next morning, I called Sarah. I want to sell the apartment. I told her, I need a fresh start. Sarah expressed her understanding and promised to take care of the matter as soon as possible. After hanging up, I took a deep breath and opened my dusty laptop. I started writing a new advertising program. It was the first time I poured my true feelings into my work. I wrote a story about rebirth, about how to rebuild oneself amidst the ruins. After I finished writing it, I felt a long-lost sense of fulfillment. The next day, I returned to the office. My coworkers looked at me with strange eyes. Obviously, they had heard about me, but I didn't care. I walked straight into the conference room and started presenting my new program. When I finished speaking, the whole room fell silent. Then, applause broke out. My boss came over and tapped me on the shoulder. "Daniel, this is your best work," he said. "I don't know what you've been through, but it's taken your creativity to the next level." I forced a smile, my heart a mix of emotions. Yeah, that's a pretty big price to pay, I thought bitterly. That night, I stood on the balcony of my apartment overlooking New York at night. This city that never goes out has witnessed my happiness and my pain. Now it would witness my rebirth. I pulled out my cell phone and sent Emma a message. "Thanks for being there for me. I think I'm ready to move on." Emma quickly replied, "I'm proud of you, brother. Remember, no matter what happens, you're not alone." I took a deep breath and felt the night breeze on my face. Yes, I am not alone. Even in my darkest moments, I have people to support me, a cause to sustain me, and a dream to guide me. The divorce was finally finalized. I stood on the courthouse steps, looking at the papers in my hands, feeling like the end of a long nightmare. Emma was beside me, gently holding my hand and giving me an encouraging smile. "How does it feel?" she asked. I took a deep breath. Honestly, I don't know. Relief? Sadness? Probably both. We decided to go sit at a nearby cafe. It's a place Olivia and I frequent, but today, I wanted to redefine its meaning. Shortly after sitting down, I saw a familiar figure walk in. Jake. Our eyes met in the air, and he visibly froze for a moment before hesitantly approaching. "Hi, Daniel." His voice was apologetic. I felt a surge of anger rise up, but then it subsided. I was too tired to even be angry. "Jake," I said calmly, "what can I do for you?" He stood there restlessly. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know it probably won't make up for my mistake, but I interrupted him. "Jake, listen. We used to be best friends, but now we're nothing. I don't hate you, but I don't want to see you again either. That's all." Jake nodded, remorse and shame written all over his face. He turned to leave, his back looking so forlorn. Emma watched the scene and whispered, "You handled it well, Daniel." I smiled bitterly. "Maybe, but I feel like I've lost so much." Just then, a voice interrupted our conversation. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I looked up, and it was an unfamiliar female. She had warm brown eyes and a friendly smile. "Oh no, have a seat," I said. She introduced herself. "My name is Sophia and I work at the yoga studio across the street." We chatted, topics ranging from the weather in New York to recent movies. Without realizing it, I found myself smiling, the kind of smile that comes from the heart. Emma seemed to notice something and excused herself to go to the bathroom and left. Sophia was easy to talk to, and her sense of humor reminded me of myself years ago. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet for coffee someday. Later that night, I lay in bed, reflecting on the amazing afternoon. I picked up my cell phone and hesitated to send Sophia a message. "We had a great chat today, and look forward to seeing you next time." She quickly replied, "Me too. Sweet dreams, Daniel." I put my cell phone at the foot of my bed and felt a twinge of long-awaited anticipation. Perhaps life was quietly getting better. Over the next few weeks, Sophia and I met a few times. Each time we met, I felt relaxed and happy. But at the same time, I felt a twinge of guilt. One night, I couldn't help but confide in Emma. "I think I might like Sophia," I said, "but I'm not sure I'm ready to start a new relationship." Emma looked at me thoughtfully. "Daniel, you don't need to feel guilty about how you feel. You've worked so hard for so long, and you deserve to be happy. I nodded, but inside I was still a little hesitant. The next day, I asked Sophia out to dinner. I decided to come clean about my situation. Sophia, I take a deep breath. I need to tell you something. I told her everything that had happened in the past few months, including my divorce and my internal struggles. After I finished, I nervously waited for her reaction. Sophia listens quietly, then gently takes my hand. Daniel, thank you for being willing to tell me this. I can feel your pain and understand your hesitation. But, if you want, I want to face the future with you. We can take it slow, okay? I felt my eyes moisten and nodded. Just then, my cell phone rang. It was Olivia. I hesitated, but answered the phone. Olivia's voice sounded urgent. Daniel, I know it's not my place to bother you, but I'm in some trouble and I need your help. I frowned. What kind of trouble? I'm pregnant. It's Jake's baby, but he won't take responsibility. I don't know what to do. I felt a wave of vertigo. The news felt like a punch in the gut, shattering my newly established peace of mind yet again. Sophia looked at me with concern. Is everything okay? I forced a smile. I need to take care of something. After hanging up, I sat there, at a loss for words. I thought I had let go of the past, but reality hit me hard in the face once again. Sophia patted my hand gently. No matter what happens, remember you're not alone. I'm always here if you need me. I looked at her gratefully and suddenly realized that maybe this is life. It's always full of surprises and challenges, but it also brings new possibilities. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do know that no matter what, I'm going to be brave. Because now I am no longer alone. Olivia's phone call was like a bomb, blowing the life I'd managed to rebuild back to pieces. I sat on a bench in Central Park and watched the crowds come and go, my mind reeling. Emma sat down next to me and handed me a cup of coffee. What are you going to do? She asked softly. I laughed bitterly. I don't know, Emma. I really don't. I told Emma that Olivia wanted me to help her through this. She said Jake refused to take responsibility and she felt isolated. But it shouldn't be your responsibility, Emma frowned. She betrayed you, and now she wants your help? I sighed. I know, but there's no way to stand by. Emma was silent for a moment, then said, Daniel, you're always so kind. But don't forget to protect yourself, okay? I nodded and looked gratefully at Emma. Without her, I don't know if I would have made it through this. The next day, I asked Olivia out to meet me. When I saw her, I couldn't help but freeze. She looked much more haggard, with noticeable dark circles under her eyes. Thank you for being willing to see me, Daniel, Olivia said softly. I know it's not my place to ask for your help, but I really don't know what to do. I took a deep breath. Olivia, we're divorced. I can't help you with you and Jake. Tears came to Olivia's eyes. I know. I'm scared to face this alone. I felt a pang of heartache as I watched the woman I once loved so much be so vulnerable. But I knew I couldn't afford to get stuck in the past again. I can give you some advice, I finally said, but that's all. You need to face this situation on your own. I gave Olivia some contact information for lawyers and counselors and suggested that she tell her parents the truth. As she was leaving, Olivia looked at me with a desire to talk. Daniel, do you hate me? She asked softly. I looked into her eyes and shook my head. No, Olivia. I don't hate you. I'm just disappointed. But I hope you find your happiness. I felt a strange sense of relief after leaving Olivia. Perhaps this was true letting go. In the evening, I called Sophia. I felt a rush of warmth when I heard her voice. Hey, I said, how was your day? Sophia smiles and says, not bad. More interested to know how you are, though. Is everything okay? I hesitated, but decided to come clean. I saw Olivia today. There was silence on the other end of the line for a moment. Then Sophia whispered, I understand. Are you okay? I felt a surge of emotion. Instead of questioning or getting angry, Sophia was concerned about my feelings. I think I've finally let go, I said. Sophia, I think I'm ready. Ready to start a new life with you. Sophia's voice was laced with laughter. So where do we start, Mr. Daniel? We made plans to go to an art show in Brooklyn together for the weekend. The day was sunny and the streets were filled with a cheerful atmosphere. Watching Sophia excitedly explain each painting, I felt a long overdue happiness. You know, Sophia said suddenly, I've been thinking that maybe we could open a yoga and art therapy studio together. I raised an eyebrow. Really? That sounds like fun. Sophia excitedly explains her ideas and I listen carefully, making suggestions now and then. Suddenly, I realize that this is the life I want. Not perfect, but full of possibilities and room to grow together. Over the next few months, my relationship with Sophia grew steadily. We started preparing for our studio, and every day was full of new challenges and surprises. Emma supported us fully and even offered to help design the studio logo. One day, I ran into Jake on the street, looking much more haggard, with an apologetic look in his eyes. Daniel, he said hesitantly, I heard you and Sophia are together. I'm happy for you. I nodded. Thanks. Jake, I hope you take good care of Olivia and the baby. Jake lowered his head. I know. I will. I'm sorry, Daniel, for everything. I patted him on the shoulder. Take care of your family, Jake. Watching Jake's back as he left, I felt a sense of relief. The wounds of the past were finally beginning to heal and a new life was beginning. That night, Sophia and I were sitting in our soon-to-be-open studio, looking out the window at Brooklyn at night. You know, I said softly, I never thought life would turn out this way, but I'm glad it turned out the way it has. Sophia leaned over my shoulder. Me too, Daniel. Me too. We smiled at each other and then continued to plan our future. I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Because this time, I have found my true partner in my own happiness. Time flies, and before we know it, Sophia and I have been together for over a year now. Our yoga and art therapy studio is on track, and we have many guests experiencing our classes every day. Life seems to be finally back on track and even better than before. We had just finished our day's work that day when Sophia suddenly turned to me with a glint of excitement in her eyes. Daniel, I have an idea, she said. Let's get married. I froze, not knowing how to respond for a moment. Sophia saw my hesitation and gently took my hand in hers. I know you may not be ready, she said gently. We can take our time. There's no rush. I took a deep breath and looked into Sophia's eyes. There I saw understanding, patience, and unconditional love. No, Sophia, I said. I think I'm ready. Let's get married. Sophia looked at me in surprise and then gave me a big hug. It was at this moment that I felt like I had finally let go of the past completely and was ready to embrace a new future. We decided to keep it simple and intimate, inviting only our closest friends and family, and Emma nearly jumped out of her skin when she heard the news and immediately volunteered to be my best man, insisting that there was no rule that a best man had to be male. However, just as the wedding preparations were underway, the peace was shattered by an unexpected announcement. Olivia called, sounding a little tired. Daniel, I know this is a bit much to ask, but can I come to your wedding? I was momentarily speechless, not knowing how to respond. Olivia continued, I want to see you happy. Maybe then I can really let go. After hanging up the phone, I sat there with my thoughts racing. Should I invite Olivia? Would it be fair to Sophia? I decided to come clean with Sophia about it. After hearing this, Sophia pondered for a while and then said, Daniel, it's your decision. If you think inviting her will help you let go of the past completely, I support you. Once again, I feel Sophia's forgiveness and understanding. I nodded. Thank you, Sophia. I think I need to face this. The day of the wedding was sunny. I stood on the lawn of Brooklyn Bridge Park and watched Sophia walk toward me in her simple yet elegant white dress. Her smile was brighter than the sun, and I felt like the happiest person in the world. Emma stood beside me, wiping tears of excitement from her eyes. My parents sat in the front row with proud smiles on their faces. Just as we were about to exchange vows, I noticed Olivia quietly standing behind the crowd. She had a complicated look in her eyes, a mixture of blessing and a hint of undetectable sadness. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew and Sophia's veil floated up. I instinctively reached out to grab it, only to see Olivia one step ahead of me, catching the veil steadily. She stepped forward and carefully handed Sophia her veil and whispered, I wish you all the happiness in the world." Sophia took the veil with a smile and a soft, "Thank you." I watched this scene and suddenly felt a strange sense of peace. The ceremony continued and Sophia and I exchanged rings and vows. Everyone cheered when the pastor announced that we were officially husband and wife. After the wedding, I saw Olivia getting ready to leave. I gently touched Sophia's hand, and she nods knowingly. I walked towards Olivia. "Thank you for coming to our wedding," I said sincerely. Olivia forced a smile. "I'm glad to see you found true happiness, Daniel." I'm happy for you." I nodded. "Are you okay? How's the baby?" "We're all fine," Olivia says. "And Jake finally decided to take responsibility. We're trying to run our little family." I felt a wave of relief. "That's good. Take care, Olivia." Watching Olivia's back as she left, I felt the last stone in my heart fall to the ground. I turn around and walk back to Sophia, who is laughing and joking with Emma. "Is everything okay?" Sophia asked with concern. I looked into her eyes and felt overwhelmed with happiness and gratitude, more than ever. That night, as we sat on the balcony of our Brooklyn apartment, watching the lights of Manhattan, Sophia leaned over my shoulder and whispered, "You know, Daniel, I never thought my life would be like this. But right now, I don't want to change a single thing." I kiss her forehead. "Me too, Sophia. Me too." We smiled at each other and then continued to enjoy the night scene in front of us. I know that life won't always be smooth sailing, and we will face many more challenges. But as long as we're together, there's nothing we can't overcome. Because after all I've been through, I finally realized that true love is not the absence of pain, but the willingness to face it together. It's not the absence of challenges, but the willingness to accept them together. And I, at last, have found someone with whom I would like to spend my life. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.